I'm pleased to introduce the person who's going to introduce our keynote speaker, Molly Greek, who's CIO at the UC Office of the President. And we're delighted to have their partnership and welcome Molly to the stage.
So first of all, I want to express my gratitude for using the best picture that's ever been taken of me. This is my all-time favorite picture, and I'll probably use this picture for the rest of my life, no matter how old I get. So I wanted to, just express my, I'm so glad I came today. I was, when I talked to Camille about coming today, this is my first time attending this. I've been at UC Office of the President for about 9 or 10 months now, and before that I was at UC Davis Health for 7.5 years. And when I was talking to her, I'd love to come, I hadn't heard about it, I'm sure it'd be great, but I'm so busy. And I'm so glad I made the decision to come because it really has, it's been wonderful. It's really made me remember why I'm so excited to be in this role, why it's so wonderful to meet some of the people here. And I'll tell you, it makes me feel super lazy when we have our award winners and I think, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything compared to these people. So that has been a real pleasure. One thing I was just going to mention is I read a lot of Gartner, which is an IT sort of, what's called a think tank or advisory. And I saw something that really made a big difference for me wanting to be here today. It says that women CIOs wear 3 hats. One of them is doing the operational job, which I'm not going to kid you, is a lot of work. But there's this other piece, which is we are the advocate for diversity and inclusion efforts at our organization. And that is certainly a big focus area for me. It's a passion area for me. It has been for some time. But in my new role, I get much more of an opportunity to do that. But then the third thing, the third hat that women CIOs wear is being a role model for others, is letting people know what's the secret sauce and how can it happen for me. So that's really a good reminder for me that, yes, I need to do my operational job. I need to be an advocate for diversity and inclusion. But I also need to be a role model and find ways to share the secret sauce with others so that those of you who are interested can move your careers ahead too. So with that, I wanted to introduce our speaker today, who is another person that makes me feel really lazy. Wendy Nather is head of the advisory CISO team at Duo Security, which is now part of Cisco. She was previously the research director at the Retail ISAC, which is the Intelligence Sharing and Analysis Center, as well as research director of the information security practice at independent analyst firm 451 Research. Wendy led IT security for the EMEA, which is Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, of the investment banking division of Swiss Bank Corporation, which is now UBS, and served as CISO of the Texas Education Agency. As if that wasn't enough, she is also the co-author of the Cloud Security Rules and was listed as one of SC Magazine's Women in IT Security Power Players in 2014, as well as an influencer in the Reboot Leadership Awards in 2018. She serves on the advisory board for Sightline Security, an organization that helps nonprofits improve their cybersecurity. And she lives in Austin, Texas with her family and more than 30 IP-enabled devices. Please join me in welcoming Wendy.
Thank you. Woo. Okay. I think we're good to go. Thanks for coming. This talk, which I also gave it at RSA conference last week in San Francisco, is the culmination of things I've been thinking about and learning about for the last 10 years or so. And I keep learning new things to add to it every day, including today. So we'll see how this talk comes out at the end. So my first question that I've been asking myself these days is, what were we thinking? Really, what were we thinking? I know what we were thinking. We were thinking that IT people would be the only people ever to use technology, and that companies would control how it was used, and that you had to know how to code to use that technology? Yeah, really? So I'm going to suggest that it's a lot of unquestioned beliefs that we have that are tripping us up now day after day. It used to be, a long time ago, that we people in tech were the masters of the universe because we had all the knowledge and we made all the rules and everybody else had to follow them. But today, we are all consumers and have our own technology, and we do what we want with our own devices. It's gotten a lot more difficult because we used to run everything. We used to issue and manage the devices. We used to run the servers and write the software and pull the cables. And now, the laptops have left the building, and so have the servers, and so has the software. So none of this is working the way it used to anymore. And the old authoritarian model of we are the wizards and you are the muggles and we make the rules is just not going to work for us anymore. Everybody has tech, and tech is being democratized. And if tech is being democratized, we're working with an outdated model that we have to break and put back together. It's time to democratize security. Now, what does that even mean? Democratizing security can mean a lot of different things to different people. It can mean sharing security information and data and tools with people outside of the security industry. It can mean what 451 research refers to as citizen contributors, those people who are outside of the industry who can contribute security knowledge, vulnerability research, and so on inside. I'm going to talk about what it means to me and what it means to some people that I've talked to around the world. And I'm also going to talk about how we can do it. I think that there are three ways that we can attack this. First, by shifting our model of security from a control model to a collaborative model. Secondly, by simplifying and redesigning the security controls that we use. And thirdly, by opening up the security culture so that it can be understood and appreciated and adopted by people who are outside of the security industry. So let's start with number one, thinking about control versus collaboration. I love this quote. When you can't control people's behavior, you have to deputize the majority of users to be CIOs. Security should be designed to be adopted rather than engineered to be enforced. And this quote is from my great-grandboss, Doug Song, who is the co-founder of Duo Security and is now a GM, general manager at Cisco. This is what democratizing security means to him. So let's look at what used to be. We used to have systems and software for work, and we had systems and software for life, and they were very, very different things. You would use one completely different set of systems and everything at work, because nobody goes home at the end of the day and plays with ERP software for fun, right? Because if you do, I want to stage an intervention. But now, work stuff and life stuff have come together. And you can be using exactly the same software for your employer that you use for home, like Gmail. You can be using it on the same device, the same software, the same person, the same network, the same location. The only difference is what you're using it for and maybe what you're logging in as, what username that you're using. Because when I use Gmail, personally, my employer doesn't care. But if I log in with my work account into Gmail, my employer absolutely cares about what security I should be using. So we have to thread that very tricky needle now between work and life. And the problem with putting work and life together is that people start worrying that their employer is going to try to control what they do in their personal life. Like, this is my device. Don't you dare wipe my personal device. So there's a lot of concern about too much control, and users are pushing back. When I used to work for a Swiss bank, I found out later from my team that when I would do a walkthrough of the trading floor in my little designer suit, the traders, when they saw me coming, would unplug their modems from their workstations, hide them in a desk drawer, wait until I went by, and then they'd pull them out and plug them back in again. So was I the threat that they should have been focused on? No. But I was the most visible threat. I was the image of control that they were trying to push back against. And this is happening more and more all over the place. So we've got to shift from a control model to a collaboration model. And we don't always know what's best for our users. I know this is really shocking, especially for people in the industry who are used to making up all those rules and saying, well, if we don't teach them how to use it, how are they going to know how to use it? But I'm not necessarily talking about understanding the intricacies of something technical. I'm talking about making the decisions on how it should be used and when it should be used, and making risk decisions. This is the really important thing. So I have a friend who is a CISO at a really large tech company, and he tells me about when his business units come to him and say, we want to try this initiative. Is it safe? He says, I don't know. Is it? You tell me. And that may sound really snarky, but what he's doing is empowering them to make the business decision, because they are the ones who understand the business opportunity versus the business risk much better than he does. And so this is where we want to start going. Instead of just saying no, being the Department of No, saying, I don't know, you tell me. Now, the word collaboration is actually not new. It's been 20 years now since the Jericho Forum in the UK, a bunch of CISOs of financial institutions came together and talked about the idea of deperimeterization, which meant that they wanted everyone to treat their assets as if they were exposed to the internet and secure them accordingly, pretend that they were all on the outside, and not treat something as more secure just because it was inside the firewall. Now, this idea led to them proposing what they called a collaboration-oriented architecture. So there's that word, collaboration. If you can't control something but you have to secure it, you have to rely on collaboration. And this idea, this model, has now become what we are calling zero trust these days. Now, I like the term collaboration better than I like the term zero trust. Sorry, better than I like the idea of not trusting anybody. So we're just going to go with that right now. What it essentially means is you can say to somebody, look, do what you want with your device on your own time. But if you want to access our resources, you're going to have to meet certain security requirements. Now, you figure out how you want to do that. We might have higher security requirements based on the sensitivity of our data. We might not care what you're using, or we might care a whole lot what you're using to access this stuff, but we're going to make sure that you have to meet our security requirements, but you figure out how to do it, and you tell us how you're going to meet those requirements. How would this look if we considered this as part of an architecture? Now, this is kind of what, some kind of generic architecture that I just made up. And if you think of everything inside the green square as being, the traditional model of things inside your data center, inside your office building, this is the stuff you nominally control. Well, you don't control the internet, you don't control the network, you don't control the user. You might think you do, but you don't. And you're using a lot of third-party services. As we talked about earlier this morning, we talked about infrastructure as a service, we talked about software as a service, even using third-party APIs. And if you think about it, all of those are using different layers where you might or might not have control. So if you're using IaaS, you might control the instance itself, but you don't control the hypervisor, you don't control the operating system, the hardware, the network, and so on. If you're using SaaS, you only control a small wedge of your account with that provider, what they allow you to use. That's the only thing you control. If you're using a third-party API, the only control you have is how you're using that API. So my challenge to you is think about how we would architect things differently if we thought about where we control something and where we don't. Because in a lot of cases, we might end up giving up more control. We're already doing this with cloud. Anytime we outsource something, we're giving up control of the bottom layers. But we got to think more specifically about how else we can give up control. Because there are other ways. For example, at a few universities I've heard about, they have portals where researchers can go and enter the type of data they want to work with and look up the regulatory and security control requirements and decide whether this is something that they want to get into or whether maybe we don't need to use that data. So they're doing that. Another example might be that you want to externalize business rules for an application so that the business can change them whenever they want to without you having to rewrite the whole application. That's another thing that you could think about. So thinking about where you could build in collaboration to your architecture model. Now this is kind of scary for some people to think about, so I'm going to frame it maybe in a different way and see if this helps. If you think about cost equaling control, anything that you still need to control is going to cost you. You have to make policies around it, you have to maintain it, you have to monitor compliance with your policies, you've got to manage exceptions to it. All of that costs time and people and money. So from a business perspective, if you're thinking about how much do we really need to control in order to mitigate our risk, and can we move some things out because it doesn't matter that much whether we control them. And by doing so, we can optimize the cost of what we're doing. We can help the business react and take steps at its own pace. We can go into hyperspace just like this, which is what everybody wants to do, right? We want to go into hyperspace, and we want to help the business be more agile. We want to go at the speed of the business. So this is what we want to do. Wow, that wasn't part of the original animation. That's pretty cool, though. We're about to dive into some kind of sun, which, you know, sometimes that happens in business, too. All right, let's go on to number 2. Let's talk about design. Here's another quote. Design measures that take away the complexity in security and make it understandable. Factor people in during the design and implementation of security measures. And this is by my friend Elizabeth Kolade, who is part of the Cybersecurity Experts Association of Nigeria. And this is what democratizing security means to her. Changing the design. Making it understandable. Now, you may have noticed that we keep asking ourselves the same questions year after year after year, like, why doesn't management listen to our risk analysis? Like, I told them this was bad, they didn't listen to me, they went ahead and did it, why? Why do they not listen to me? I'm the expert. Or things like, why are security professionals getting burned out? Because they are, a lot of them. A lot of them feel like Sisyphus year after year, rolling that boulder up. And then here's my perennial favorite. Why do people keep clicking on things that we tell them not to click? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because, first of all, the users have different priorities other than security. And secondly, hello, the entire internet is built to click on. It is all about clicking on. Why are we telling people to stop doing what is natural? There are people in business whose entire job is to click and to open attachments. People in HR, people in accounting. Why do we keep yelling at them to stop? It's like trying to get frogs to fly and saying, these frogs are just not flying. I don't know why we're educating them. Sometimes we help them by throwing them. They don't go very far. I don't understand why this is not working. So when I was at the Texas Education Agency, I had a general counsel who wanted me to put in a mail filter to stop Social Security numbers from being sent outside of the agency. And I'm like, great. So I did that. A couple of months later, guess who was caught mailing SSNs out of the agency in the form of performance evaluations to his home address? The same guy who wanted me to stop the people from doing that. This is normal. It's natural. We have to stop, because otherwise we're going to run into things that even security experts like me run into. For example, I'm kind of new to Cisco, and I got an email that said, your paid time off is about to expire. And I said, wow, is that even a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. How would I know? I was new to Cisco. I almost clicked on that link. Oh, it's a good thing it was a phishing exercise. But the thing is that we have to stop yelling at people for doing what is natural and expected. Otherwise, we're going to turn ourselves into a meme. Actually, I would argue that we have already turned ourselves into a meme. We could just think that, oh, they're just not getting this. If we just explain it a little louder, if we just train them a little harder, maybe this year it'll work. No, it is not going to work, and we have to question all of our assumptions. Why don't we just secure things so that it doesn't matter if they click? Why are we relying on people to do what really our security should be doing for them? Now, it used to be when I started in this field about 35 years ago, that it was a very small community, and we all kind of had the same background, we all knew each other, and you could describe things as being intuitively obvious because everybody had the same background of knowledge. But you can't do that anymore. We write for the world. We write for our friends, for our neighbors. We write for people in countries we have never seen. We cannot expect them to know what we know. And in fact, they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to know all this stuff in order to be secure. Let's take a spoon. Everybody's going, what? Think about the design of a spoon. You cannot use a spoon wrong. It is really hard to use a spoon the wrong way, okay? Okay, yes, maybe you could do it that way, but not for very long. You figure it out. So if you're a toddler, you learn how to use a spoon. After that, you go everywhere in the world, and you see a spoon, you know how to pick up and use it. You don't have to have annual spoon awareness training. This is what we want to get to. Security that's as easy to use and as hard to get wrong as a spoon. Now, I know that this is not an easy thing to do, but this is the challenge in front of us. Let's see if we can do this, because that will solve a lot of the perennial problems that we keep running into over and over again. So what does this look like in reality? Here's a concrete example. When Apple first had their lock screen, remember you had to push it, type in 4 numbers to unlock it? According to their own data, only 35% of their people actually used it because they hated typing in the 4 numbers. Even Steve Jobs refused to use it. It's annoying. I get it. I understand. So they would not use the lock screen. When they implemented Touch ID, the usage jumped up to 80%. And it's not just because it was biometrics, because biometrics had been around for a while. They just weren't that easy to use. The beauty of the design is that they put Touch ID right on the home button where the user was going to press anyway. That's the beauty of that design. That's how it's so slick. You align security with what the user was going to do anyway, what they would rather do. Click on that. Boom. This is what we want more security to look like. We also need to design it for a wider range of personas. We have been assuming that everybody is an IT person who uses our products, especially security products. And in the SMBs, that's not the case. A lot of people who are in charge of security are not security people, or they're not even necessarily tech people. We have to design it for the way that those people want to use it, not the way we think that they should use it. And we also have to radically simplify what we're designing for them, because as tech professionals or people who are studying engineering and computer science, we're comfortable with a certain amount of complexity. But most people are not. Most people do not care. They are not going to admire our dashboard for hours and look at all the cute little functions on them. No, they have a job that they want to do. They want to go in, do it, and get back out again. So we have to simplify it for the way that they want to work. We have to simplify the functions, the operations, the data, everything. And again, I know this is not easy. It takes a lot of work to simplify something, because you don't just carve off features and throw them out and say, right, we're not doing this anymore. You have to rethink how they want to use it. Rethink where you want to put that biometrics button. Where's the best place in the glide path? And everybody is going to want a consumer-grade experience, because we have that at home with everything that we choose. And when you have democracy in technology, people are going to vote for what they want. They're going to vote with their budget. They're going to vote with compliance or non-compliance for what they would rather do. So they're going to vote for something that has the best experience at work as well as at home. They're not going to put up with engineering-grade user interfaces anymore. People are already pushing back, especially the privileged users who I would guess here at the university are probably faculty. Am I guessing right? Like, it's my grant money, I'll do what I want with it, and I want this, and you can't tell me otherwise. They're already voting, so we have to simplify the experience to make it easier and get better results for everyone, because users are pushing back. They are taking control. We can either fight it, or we can work with them to make it work for them. All right, last one, number 3. In a digital society, security has to be basic knowledge, freely available and taught to all ages. Both the laws and the morals of this society must adapt and behave accordingly. This is a quote by my friend Sarah Krische, who is a freelance journalist in Austria. And this is what she said when I asked her, what does democratizing security mean to you? She talked about the morals of this society adapting, which is really interesting. How would we do that? First of all, we have to make security part of everybody else's culture. We can't bring them into our culture and shoehorn them in and get them to understand everything about hoodies and hackers and, ooh, you're pwned and all that kind of stuff. We have to make it useful and understandable to them throughout their entire lifetime. Starting with, for example, education. We need to make it so that kindergartners who do not know their letters and numbers don't have to type in a password. And there are already companies that are working on things like that, but I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to argue that we need to be teaching kids to help make security decisions for themselves. We should not be raising them to be compliant with an authoritarian security model that belongs to somebody else. Now, I don't use parental controls at home. But my 15-year-old daughter came to me a couple of months ago and said, I need you to help me set the parental controls on my phone. I was like, what? It turns out she wanted help enforcing more discipline in how she did her schoolwork. She wanted it to turn off and disable access to social media apps like, God, TikTok, and I don't know what else she's using. So I said, fine, you set up the controls the way you want them. I will put in a password that you don't know. And now whenever she wants to change, she comes to me and I unlock it for her, and she changes it the way she wants it. She's making the security decisions for herself. And I believe that we can do this for everyone, for kids of all ages. We can start teaching them security that applies to their particular age and their level of understanding, and teach them that they can make security decisions. We don't want them to wait until they grow up and get a job with an employer and get their employer's security model imposed on them. We want them to start deciding now. We need to be able to secure the future. Now, one more thing that we keep talking about and asking about is we keep noticing that we're making the same security flaws, the same mistakes, no matter what the technology. It used to be that we had web applications, and we had a lot of security mistakes with those that we had to learn and fix. Then we started seeing the same problems again in mobile applications, and now we're seeing the same security problems again in IoT. Why is that? It's because it's a different population working on those technologies. They didn't learn what we learned at the beginning from our mistakes. They are all new people. So this is why we have to teach security to everybody. Everybody should be able to understand and apply basic security controls and concepts, so that no matter what technology comes along in the future and no matter who works on it, they will be able to secure it because they get it. They know how. This is what I mean by security of, by, and for the people. And we can no longer leave security in the hands of the people who've been working on it. The analysts, the vendors, the people in academia, governments. We have to expand it to everybody of all ages, even though we're the ones who've been working on it for a really long time. I mean, last time I was here in Berkeley, it was 35 years ago, and I was visiting the folks who were working on BSD Unix. You know, security did not start in the 90s, people. I'm just saying. This was a lot earlier than this. And, you know, you millennials with your bit chain and your block coin and I don't know what. Wait, did somebody just say, okay, boomer? Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I am a boomer. Born during the baby boom, I am a boomer. And it may be that I've been thinking about this the old way for so long that I'm not the right person to take it forward on my own. That's why we need to include everybody. Everybody of all ages. Think of the smartest person you know who knows nothing about technology or security. Go invite them to talk with you about how they want to use things and how things should work for them and what kind of decisions they want to make for themselves. So, and this is how we can start. I believe that we can do this. If we start thinking about shifting the model from control to collaboration, if we simplify and redesign our security controls so that they work the way that users want them to and want to use them, not the way we think they should be used. And finally, opening up our security culture and letting other people adopt it the way that they want to adopt it. Stop being a tribe of elite wizards, because security should be for everybody. We can do this. I know we can. We can do this. So let's do this.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, that was wonderful.
Over to you for Q&A, or
Yeah, we're going to have
do we have time?
Brief Q&A while we're switching up the laptops again. And one of them that I thought was really relevant that came through the app was, in spite of all these sort of, you know, head-banging moments, what motivates you to continue in the work that you do?
Oh, God, I'm going to contradict what I think people have been saying about career all during today. This is what I'm good at, and it makes me money. This is a... I mean, okay, now's the time for me to tell you, I'm a liberal arts major originally. So, all right, represent. But the great thing is, and people have been pointing this out, that, you know, things like development engineering and trends where you can apply security to everything, and you can apply everything to security. And this is where the magic happens, where we're applying various disciplines and types of knowledge to this problem. I mean, security is an economic problem as well as a societal problem, a technological problem, a political problem, all sorts of things. So I think, like many people here, the complexity of it is interesting to me. There's always something new to learn. But don't feel as though you have to be, you know, born and bred, security's in my blood, I bleed, you know, packets, I don't know. Because not everybody is that lucky to be able to get a job that they love, that they continue to love. You know, sometimes you just do what supports your family. And if you're lucky, you have a really great group of people to do it with, and you have interesting problems to solve, and you have the satisfaction of doing your best. So, yeah.
Fair enough. That's great. Well, thank you for that perspective. We really appreciate it. So let's have one more round of applause for our keynote speaker.